Today we're talking to Josh Tan from ExportNZ. Welcome, Josh.
Kia ora, Danny.
Excellent. So what I wanted to do in terms of just being able to kick this off is if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and provide an overview of ExportNZ and how it supports New Zealand businesses and expanding internationally.
Fantastic. So look, I'm the Executive Director for Export New Zealand and also an organisation called Manufacturing New Zealand. I've been with the organisation for just over 2 years now. So Export New Zealand is the peak industry body for New Zealand's export sector. We've got a really broad membership everyone from your large end of town, the likes of Zespri, Fonterra, both sit on our advisory board, all the way through to small to mediums and new exporters as well. Export New Zealand is part of the Business New Zealand network. So Business New Zealand is New Zealand's largest peak body representative for businesses. There's around 76,000 members across the country. We've got sector brands like Export New Zealand, Manufacturing New Zealand, but then also other representative groups, Energy Council, Sustainable Business Council, and then we're also represented throughout the country with our regional shareholders, so the EMA, the Employers and Manufacturers Association, Business Central for Central New Zealand, Business Canterbury for Canterbury and West Coast, and then Business South for the Deep South as well. So a really big business network there. Members of our organisation come through those 4 regional networks, and you're able to get connected into businesses around the country as well. So it's awesome. Yeah. So look, as a business membership organisation, our role is to advocate for, to inspire, connect, to celebrate New Zealand exporters. One of our key goals is to build a strong ecosystem here in New Zealand that supports each other. So that's service providers, ourselves, other business councils, chambers of commerce, making sure that we all understand that the goal at the end of the day is to grow the New Zealand economy. We're a non-for-profit organisation. We're also not government. That's one question that we get quite a bit. We're basically funded by our business members. So our funding comes from there. It means that we can be apolitical. It means that we aren't attached to the government of the day, and it means that we can give an honest opinion to the government as well about what the business community wants from them.
Okay, excellent. So picking up on that, before we get too far into the questions,
Cool.
We've got a new government with a new perspective on trade and exports. What's your take on the new direction?
Yeah, so look, before the election, I thought there was some really positive messaging from what is now our 3 government partners. I can recall back to the Business New Zealand pre-election conference. All 3 parties outlined the positive perspective that they have on exporting from New Zealand, the positive impact that exporting also has on the New Zealand economy. So 25% of New Zealand's GDP is from export revenue. Also 25% of New Zealand jobs are attached to exporting businesses as well. So really important to the New Zealand economy. What we've heard so far from the national-led government is 3 key objectives around trade and export from New Zealand. So that's double export value in 10 years, better trade relationships with India, but also with the Gulf states and with the Pacific Alliance, and more trade missions per year than ever before. So 3 key things. Look, I think these really resonate with the business community, with the export community as well. We released our pre-election document, which outlined a whole bunch of stuff which we had heard directly from exporters around the country. And look, I think we feel like we've been listened to by this incoming government. We also had a meeting with the Trade Minister a few weeks ago, so we talked about a whole range of topics again. First and foremost, the WTO, which he is currently at time of recording. So he's chairing a couple of those meetings. So for us, it's really important around 3 key things. It's reforms in the WTO and appointing judges to the appellate body. So it means that cases can be heard at WTO when there are
trade disputes.
When there are trade disputes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There is a moratorium on e-transactions at the moment. So for the past 30 years, ever since the WTO started, there has been an agreement between all members of the WTO not to enforce customs duties on e-transactions. So that's anything from emails to MP3 files to your Netflix account.
Wow.
Now that moratorium has actually been under threat for a few years now.
Okay.
A couple developing countries have started to challenge the idea that they shouldn't be able to implement customs duties on electronic products, which sort of challenges the whole idea of a fair and free and liberal trade environment which New Zealand does thrive in. The third and fourth issues which we are quite interested at the WTO at the moment is around challenging agriculture subsidies by other countries. And I guess the fourth thing there is also around subsidies on illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing, which was addressed at the last WTO, and I think progress, we're hoping to see progress this year as well.
Yep.
Other things we talked about, so India is obviously on the cards for this next government. They've talked about building up that trade relationship with India. Look, from our perspective, that means a whole lot of other engagement as well. It means direct flights, between New Zealand and India. It means hopefully attracting more students and highly skilled workers from India into New Zealand as well. And then at the end of the rainbow is that idea of a free trade agreement there as well.
Yes. Yep.
And then engage with new free trade partners. So certainly on the agenda is the Gulf states and the Pacific Alliance. So the Pacific Alliance is a grouping of Latin American countries on the western seaboard, so Mexico through to Chile, Peru, and Colombia as well. The Gulf states are the small states within the
UAE,
Gulf, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, those countries there. So look, new opportunities for New Zealand exports, hopefully better relationships with the Gulf states and the Pacific Alliance. I think from our perspective, signing new free trade agreements is always on the list of priorities for exporters. It's something that we continuously push for. So with the last, few governments, we've said the next opportunity is around the UK and the EU. Consistently advocated for a free trade agreement with them. But now we're looking at other opportunities in the Gulf states and in the Pacific Alliance, and India seem to be the ones on the horizon for us.
Excellent. So would you say as well that there's kind of a broader range of opportunities as well, sort of available for the export side of things?
Yeah, and when you think about New Zealand's trade portfolio, it's about 75% of New Zealand's trade is actually covered already under a free trade agreement. Yeah. So a significant amount of New Zealand's export value already goes to free trade partners. It's that last 25% which is really challenging and will always be really challenging there as well. Exporters have consistently asked for better trade relationships with the United States. We understand that won't come anytime soon, but we need to keep persisting with that conversation. Yep. Certainly India is on the agenda, being a developing country, the largest population in the world, huge middle class, lots of potential there for a better trade relationship with India.
Yep.
So, certainly ambitious from this government, but they're committed to getting there, and we're happy to support, where we can.
Yeah. Back into the questions and looking at some of the common challenges that New Zealand firms face when entering international markets. Are any of these challenges heightened in 2024? And do you work with businesses around some of those challenges?
Yeah, so I think when we think about challenges for exporting out of New Zealand, I like to think of it as the 3 Cs, capability, capacity and cargo. So 2024, absolutely, cargo has been an issue of interest, at the start of this year and the end of last year, especially around the Red Sea, the complications there with Houthi rebels attacking shipping lanes, but then also with the Panama Canal as well. So the drought in the Panama Canal is affecting New Zealand supply chains. So look, those are two issues which affect New Zealand shipping. At the moment, we're seeing that there aren't too many delays, but we are seeing that there is heightened cost to ship goods from New Zealand out to the rest of the world. I think our saving grace is that the majority of New Zealand goods goes to countries within the Pacific Rim. I think it's about $6.5 billion goes to the UK and the EU, and then there are other opportunities to ship to the US via the West Coast as well. So you don't necessarily need to berth at east on the east coast of the United States. Export New Zealand does support exporters to meet these challenges, the capability, capacity and cargo. If I break it down, capability is something which is a big focus for us this year, ensuring that exporters have the skill set, the toolbox and the know-how to be able to export efficiently and well. So what you'll see from Export New Zealand in the coming months, I'm hoping is that we stand up our own capability building program. That's something that is a response to demand from exporters around the country as well. Capacity, so it's about advocacy. Look, New Zealand is a very small market at the bottom of the world. We aren't, directly in line with some of those major shipping lanes. So a lot of the freight that comes, a lot of the cargo ships that come in and out of New Zealand has to be intentional that it actually goes to New Zealand and through to other parts of the country, parts of the world. So that is an issue for us. We are consistently talking to cargo companies, shipping companies, and also to the government about are there delays? Are we expecting anything to come down the line? And I think it's more about preparation for exporters here. These are massive companies around the world. New Zealand in our own right, does have, quite valuable commodities to ship. It's just about articulating that we need to be prepared for any shocks that come down the line. And I think that experience during COVID as well has actually helped build a lot of resilience within the New Zealand supply chain system. We understand that shocks can happen at any time, and they already have, and it means that there is a lot more planning which is going on behind the scenes there too. I think with the Red Sea, it's probably going to be an ongoing issue for the foreseeable future. We are seeing a few issues in terms of imported goods from Europe and the UK, and I think that'll be a real bellwether for us in terms of how serious this issue will get, especially when we're sending exports out. And then the third issue is around capacity. So being able to grow capacity for our exporters is actually just growing their businesses here in New Zealand. So it's finding those opportunities for investment, and also to ensure that they've got the skills and the workers that they need to be able to grow their businesses. So again, we advocate on those two issues through the Business New Zealand network. I've got a colleague who's focused on advocating around what businesses need for skills, and from the education system, also from the immigration system as well. That is quite crucial that we are able to get in the skills that businesses need. At the end of the day, it is about growing our economy. It's about growing the opportunities for New Zealanders to also get into higher skilled work, and then therefore higher paying work as well. In terms of capacity as well, just around investment, so we do manage through connecting New Zealand companies, exporters into opportunities for investment.
Yeah, and does some of that as well, in terms of what you just spoke about in regards to the capacity side of things, also speak to I suppose working with the businesses to ensure that they've got the right structure in place or right roles in place to enable some of these things as well?
Yeah, so I think part of that capability building program will be to get small businesses in front of experts, to be able to coach them through how to structure a business to ensure that they've got the right frameworks there, and that they know what potentially comes down the line when they are expected to grow in terms of size.
Yeah. So you've already talked a little bit about it, but you mentioned that obviously ExportNZ is an apolitical organisation. In what ways does ExportNZ engage in advocacy and lobbying on behalf of exporters? So what does that, I suppose, engagement with government look like?
Yeah, so I mean, like everyone else, we do go through the public submissions process when there is consultations. So we communicate points of view through, written and oral submissions. We often do both as well when it comes down to really important things going through the parliamentary process to become an act. Or to become law. So, when also government policies in the planning phase, we will typically be asked to give our perspective, at earlier stages, and give them, ideas from the export community about what could improve processes and opportunities to grow for the business community. But then, look, also being in Wellington, we've got the ability to speak directly to government officials, members of parliament, making sure that we highlight issues and also opportunities in the export sector. So that's a really important part of our job. At the end of the day, the job is to ensure that the government of the day has a clear picture of how the sector can operate, is operating, what can be done to improve the sector and hopefully grow the New Zealand economy as well.
Yeah, excellent. And so how does ExportNZ stay updated on emerging trends and opportunities in different international markets? And as an extension of that, how do the businesses get updated on those as well?
Yeah, so I mean, we stay connected with our members directly. So we've got a small team of 8 people around the country who represent Export New Zealand. Yep. Their job, while my job is around advocacy and talking to government officials on exporters' behalf, their job is to stay in touch with the community, make sure that there is opportunities to network, that there are workshops, put on, and they've got the opportunity to also communicate those issues through themselves up to us. Yep. So that's how we get fed information from our members. Also, we do regular surveys as well. Equally, we've got an excellent advisory board led by a businessman called David Boyd. They keep me up to date with the trends and the issues in their sector. They're able to direct our focus where it's needed. And then we've also got strong relationships with other service providers. Obviously, banks are well connected into exporters for financing. Then you've got your shipping companies and freight forwarders as well, who we stay connected to and make sure that we get the updates from. And then the other side as well is we talk directly to the government agencies about what they're seeing too. So there's a really good, fluid exchange of information.
Does ExportNZ get involved in facilitating collaboration partnerships between New Zealand businesses and international counterparts?
Yeah, look, I mean, we tend to focus on building strong collaboration here in New Zealand. So for us, the focus is the ecosystem domestically. So we would tend to leave a lot of the international collaboration to the likes of New Zealand Trade and Enterprise with their extensive networks. They've got offices around the world. They've got trade commissioners there, whose job it is to make sure that they're promoting New Zealand businesses to the rest of the world. But then there's also a good network of bilateral business councils here in New Zealand as well. So we try to help connect them into the business community so they can network and make contacts with their supporters overseas. Yeah. That being said, look, when we have connections to share, when we've got people that we trust in different markets, we can certainly put people in contact with them when we identify that there's potential for a good fit.
Yeah. What advice would you give to New Zealand businesses that are considering exporting for the first time, and how can they best leverage the resources and support provided by ExportNZ?
Yeah, a really good question. When we sort of look at the data, the top 3 markets for New Zealand exporters by the number of exporters is Australia, United States and the UK. Yeah. So Anglosphere countries, it's obviously relatively less risk just because you've got that understanding of language, I think a better understanding of legal systems. There's a framework there which you can trust as well. Often it's through personal connections, so people have family over in the UK or Australia. People would have travelled through the United States or done their OE over in Europe and in the UK. So it's I think connections like that which are really important for businesses who are trying to choose their first market, and I think that's probably the one piece of advice is that I would give is be careful when you are choosing that market. When you're starting out, when you've got limited capacity, choose one market to focus on, invest your time and invest your funds in doing thorough market research. Make sure that you're visiting the market constantly. You understand the value that your product has and what would resonate within the market that you choose. There are resources out there as well. So NZT have a whole lot of content on their website, mynzte.govt.nz. There's also there's also NZ Story, who also do a whole lot of free market research, which is available for New Zealand businesses to access. So that's certainly one important piece of advice that I would give. The other important piece of advice that I would give is also around understanding the market regulations and your obligations to meet them. I think that side of things can come as a big surprise to New Zealand businesses when they're trying to engage with markets overseas for the very first time.
Yep. And would you say that that's probably one of the key things? I'm just thinking about an event that I went to last week for people entering into the US market, state by state, all the different regulations, all the different taxes that can be applied. As well. Have you found that that's something as well that can trip businesses up for the first time when they're going there?
Absolutely. When you're dealing with the likes of United States or China or even India or even Australia, it is done state by state. These are massive countries. They've got many levels of government and many levels of bureaucracy and regulation that you've got to navigate. So one of the important things there and why you would be really careful in terms of choosing your market and choosing your market partner is ensure that they've got the right information and they understand how to navigate those processes as well.
Yeah. And I suppose picking up from something I heard last week, but also what you just mentioned as well, is really the importance of having boots on the ground, just to see for yourself and really get a view on the market yourself, as opposed to being a little bit arm's length from it all.
100%. Look, this is people's livelihoods. These are people's businesses.
Yeah.
If you're going overseas, you've got to make sure that you can invest the time in market. Exporting isn't easy. I think that's something which a lot of people don't get at the start. It can be really, really difficult, and there are lots of issues there which trip up New Zealand companies when they're doing it for the first time.
So are there any upcoming initiatives or developments from ExportNZ that businesses should be aware of?
Yeah, look, you'll see us on the road again really soon. We'll be taking some government agencies around the country to speak to exporters. We did that last year, which was really successful. I think we'll be busier this year than ever before, going around the country, engaging with exporters around Aotearoa, New Zealand. Our Wellington branch, just launched the Wellington Export Awards for the year. So, if you're exporting from the Wellington region, please do consider getting involved. Hawke's Bay will also be opening their nominations really soon as well. So you can find information on our website, exportnz.org.nz. As I mentioned before, we're hoping to launch our capability building program later this year. So, acknowledging that Export New Zealand, that the private sector has a part to play in terms of upskilling and equipping exporters with, knowledge and know-how about being a good exporter.
And lastly, how can interested businesses get involved with ExportNZ and access its support programs and resources?
Yeah, so look, interested businesses can join ExportNZ via membership through our 4 regional brands. So those are the Employers and Manufacturers Association for the Upper North Island, Business Central for Central New Zealand, Business South for Otago Southland, Business Canterbury for Canterbury and the West Coast. All of those details, again, are on our website, exportnz.org.nz. We've got a active LinkedIn page, so LinkedIn is what we use primarily for social media. So again, it's just ExportNZ. And then we've got a monthly newsletter which we put out with a whole lot of information, some good stuff, good articles, events which are happening up and down the country through our network.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, appreciate your time today, Josh. Thanks for filling us in on what ExportNZ does, its function, and really how it's driving business forward in New Zealand as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Danny. Appreciate it.
Thank you.